Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Under Investigation Stories Beyond the Badge. I am Mike, your host, and you will notice today that Brant is missing, and I don't know if I should cheer or be sad, but today Brant's not here because I only have 3 microphones, and today I have 2 guests, Dave and Christi Dyke. Welcome, both of you guys, to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And this could be a really short one, or it could be a really long one, and we're going to go for the middle.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you guys have a fascinating story, and I don't mean fascinating like positive, negative, but fascinating as like it's worth listening to. Dave, you and I ran into each other a couple of years back at Protector's Peak,
Right.
which we both went to a law enforcement retreat, and that's where you and I first rubbed elbows.
Right. Yeah.
And then I just met Christi today for the first time, but I've seen you on video. So, but we're going to talk about kind of your journey through law enforcement, but here's the cool thing that I'm kind of excited to talk about is I'm excited to hear Christi's side, because we all know in a marriage there's 2 sides.
Absolutely.
And in a law enforcement marriage, I don't even know how to explain that.
It's kind of, I look at it as the spouses are the ones that get left behind, on everything. They're in the dark on what's going on with their police officer, first responder spouse, what's bothering them, because they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. And I know in the conversations I've had with my wife over the years where we've grown, that's a very common thing. We don't want to necessarily come home and dump on our spouses.
Right.
I don't know if it's a protectionism thing or what, but I certainly understand that they get more abuse than we care to admit. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm excited to hear you guys' story. Excited to hear kind of about your journey and what kind of brought you to where you are today. So technically, your employment status, are you considered medically retired?
Yeah, medically retired, yes.
Okay, and you were a police officer for how many years?
24 years.
24 years.
Yep.
And we're going to jump with you here very short, but kind of give me your background, Dave. Like, where'd you grow up? How'd you end up where you are? And why are you sitting in the studio right now?
Right. So, I was a small town kid from southeast Minnesota, Hayfield, Minnesota. It's down by Rochester, nestled in kind of the plains. I think there's about between 1,300 and 1,500 people in the town. So I grew up, very small, and grew up playing sports and decided that I wanted to be a police officer pretty early in life. That was the one thing that I wanted to do. I initially wanted to be a sports trainer, but that was way too much school for me. So,
Amen. Amen.
So I was never like like in high school, I was there to play sports. I wasn't there to learn, and I was there to socialize and play sports, but somehow I passed high school.
Sounds like you and I would have got along really well in high school.
Right. So it's just like, I wrestled and played football and played baseball for a little bit, but wrestling and football were my thing. And went to a local community college down there and went back up a little bit after college or after high school. I knew I wanted to be a police officer, but wasn't necessarily ready for college yet. So I took a year off and I just worked, and that really set in that I wanted to be a cop, that these other jobs were not something I wanted to do the rest of my life.
What appealed you to law enforcement? I mean, it wasn't, or maybe it was. Was it the driving fast, carrying guns kind of thing?
No, absolutely not. It had everything to do with kind of being that shield between good and evil, that I could stand up for people that couldn't stand up for themselves.
Mm-hmm. So actually, what you and I would call a noble reason.
Right. Right. It's just, I remember as a kid, we had a car accident at the end of our driveway out when we lived in the country. And there was like a wire that got stuck on a tree and it was sparking. I was so worried as a kid that it was going to start on fire. And then when the cops got there, I was at ease because I knew they wouldn't let anything bad happen.
Wow. That's kind of cool, actually. I mean, it's so many people think that cops, become cops because they want to, like I said earlier, drive fast and carry a gun and have power.
Yeah.
And that's actually not the case in most people that I speak with.
Right. I mean, they're out there. Trust me.
Oh, I know.
They're out there.
Oh, I know.
And the ones that I say the cops that do the things right are not those. And Christy can attest or testify that I'm not a fast driver. She calls me a grandpa. But like going through the career, like chases are not fun.
No.
Gunplay is not fun. And it's just that standing up for somebody that can't stand up for themselves.
Yeah. The funny thing is you made a point real quick that chases are not fun. I've never been in a fun chase.
No.
They're stressful.
They're stressful as heck.
There's a lot of liability.
Yeah.
So let's just fix that right now for anybody who might be listening. It's like, look, chases are not, I mean, at least with us sane officers.
Yeah.
There are probably, there's.
There's ones I know. There's ones that just love it, and gosh bless them, but God bless them. But ultimately, no, man. I've been in a ton of them, like country roads. I've been in them in small cities, and none of them country roads, man. The speeds get 120, and you're driving down a gravel road, and I mean it's crazy, and so yeah, no, that had nothing to do with it. It had nothing to do with the power. I want to feel I've never took the power, never misused it. I want to think that I didn't, but it's just I wanted to be that shield between good and evil,
Right,
kind of the thin blue line, what it represents.
Yeah, no, the true meaning of the thin blue line. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how about you, Christy? Where'd you come from?
Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa. I'm an Iowa girl. Yeah. No, I was introduced to Dave. I had gotten divorced and was on my own, and kind of had a mutual friend introduce us to each other, and tried to get together a few times, and it just never worked out. And he finally, a couple months later, sent me a text message, and it just kind of took off from there. And I think my background, as most of my career has been spent in the emergency department. And so I think my background there, along with being a former first responder myself on a volunteer ambulance service, I think we could relate to each other pretty well. We both kind of spoke the same language, tend to drop a few cuss words here and there, and share that same dark sense of humor that, we just get without having to explain it. So things really took off for us.
So I find it interesting. You know how many cops are married to nurses, and nurses
know.
are married? I mean, what is that? Okay.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that.
Forgive me here, but is that like lazy dating or what?
I would agree that it is.
Hey, it's with your circle, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because every year we speak at a local college down there to the graduating nurses. We tell our story because it's very much applies to them, with the stress of the job. And I started out this year. I said, I'm a police officer, but you're going to be a bunch of nurses. Why am I here talking to you? And I said, the good chance is you're going to marry a cop.
Do you get a roll out of that?
They thought that was pretty funny. Yeah,
because
they
it's
laughed.
true.
It is.
It is so true.
is.
I bet in my office alone, there's probably, I mean, I'm not literally counting, but 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the oddest thing is, the couple who set us up together has nothing to do with being a cop or first responders. Like, they're not involved anywhere there.
Oh, funny.
She just sent me a random message at work one day and said, "Hey, would you be interested in going on a date with a cop?" And I'm like, well, he's got a job, so that's a plus for him.
It's
for
a
him,
start.
I guess.
It's a
I guess that's a bonus point.
Yeah, that's back when I had a job.
Jeez. Hey, slow down. Let's not get there quite yet. But, oh my goodness. I tell you, this is going to be an episode, I tell you.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we give each other, because, a lot of it, the stuff that we went through was really hard. And when we first met, we joked, we played jokes on each other. We would hack each other's Facebook account. But after several months, we quit doing that. And really, that's when the weight, it wasn't because of that, but you could tell how our relationship had changed. So now we're back to like dating again. We're back to kind of, falling back in love again after everything that we went through. And so we give each other a hard time. So you're going to probably get that a little bit.
Well, that's good. Good. To keep me on my toes.
Yeah.
So let's I'm going to fast forward, but I'm going to come back real quick. So everything we're talking about today is you guys have a book out.
We do.
and it's this story that we're going to talk about. Probably not as detailed as what your book is, but
Correct.
you've written your story down.
Yep.
And just so people who are still listening, what is that book called, and how can they get a copy of that before we dive into everything?
Yeah, it's Beneath the Badge: A Couple's Fight for Hope Through PTSD, and it just we lay it all out in this book, and we don't sugarcoat anything. We're pretty raw about it, and we want people to know what we went through, and if somebody else is going through it, to know that there's hope at the end, and that ultimately you can come from rock bottom and stay together and thrive. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we talk about.
So your story, I mean, your story, obviously, I introduced you at the beginning that you're medically retired. So there's a reason for that.
Correct.
But this involves, some mental health stuff. It involves some suicidal ideology.
Yep.
I mean, I guess that's the fancy terms for it,
Yeah.
but you were in a pretty dark spot for a while.
Yeah. For a long time.
So let's talk about your job a little bit. I mean, just how did we get into this dark hole? How did you get there?
Right. I started, I'll have Christi, because,
Sure.
she ultimately, she's kind of my, I always think I thought things were normal
Mhm.
when I was going through this. I'm like, this is what everybody's doing. This is how people are coping with it. This is the way, people don't understand this is how we cope with it.
Right.
Which is complete BS.
Yeah.
It is. And I just kept telling myself, so I'm going to have Christi talk
Sure.
about that.
Well, what did you notice then, Christi? I mean, from
Yes.
your perspective.
So when I met Dave, he was like the most outgoing, happy, fun people person. He loved talking to people, going out in public, to restaurants, bars, whatever, having fun. Dave was all about that. But as soon as we got married, it was like the light switch went off. And within about a month of our marriage, I felt like I was living with a complete stranger. He became more angry. He retreated to the basement. The conversations, what I consider normal conversations after work, how was your day? What happened? Tell me about your day. Just like I would expect him to ask me when I would get home from a long shift in the ER, how's your day? Tell me about it. And it was shut down. I don't want to talk about it, and he'd become angry. And I started seeing all of these changes in him. And I would ask him, what's going on? He's like, everything's fine. I'm always fine. That's his golden answer. I'm fine.
Sounds about right.
And, he would go to a therapist, randomly every few months, because anything more than that, you just don't do that. And not only that, sometimes you can't even get in for these appointments. And things just kind of kept progressing, and it just completely snowballed from Dave. And, we kind of learned after the fact, a lot of that was stuff from years ago that hadn't been dealt with. You would shove it all down, you push it all down, you don't talk about it.
Like, are we talking like childhood stuff?
No. Just, I'd been in the job for 23 years, 22 years at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to visualize here what's going on.
Yeah. There's no, I'm not, I don't have a child. I had a, my dad, and I talk about this in the book. It wasn't, he was him, it wasn't a relationship. But other than that, I had a fine childhood. I mean, it was fine. I had what I needed. I had plenty of food, and, my mom was an amazing person. So I don't want to think that it was a childhood thing. It was just, my years of rather than letting the emotions out and doing that. And I think a lot of it is, you don't want to talk to other cops about it. You might have a personal, like a really close buddy on the force, but in a sense, they're all work friends. I mean, they're work friends, and some aren't. I mean, some are closer, but you don't really want to talk to them about it, because you don't want them looking at you like you've got something wrong. This job isn't for you, because you hear that a lot in this profession. Is, if something bothers you, I've heard other people say, well, maybe this job isn't for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the other sad thing is, and I've seen it, maybe it doesn't happen, but the ones that are trying to, or used to be the ones that, tried to get the help, they got shoved aside and kind of shunned, and I felt that when I left,
Mhm. That's a common theme.
Hmm.
You know, I've spoken now to a few different first responders, and of course, my personal experience, you know, with people I know that aren't on the podcast. But it's very common when you walk away that it's like the door closes and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. It's,
I literally a friend of mine that I've known for 25 years retired yesterday, and she put a post on Facebook. She's like, literally, it says, and that this is a normal retirement. It was like, well, that's it, folks. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit. A handshake and turn in my equipment and walked out the door, and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, there was a lot more words
Mhm.
in the paragraph
Sure.
that she wrote, but I'm like, wow. I mean, she honestly just seemed a little upset by it, and
right.
understandably. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
when you
you-
put so much to
Yeah.
it,
And then you add the medical retirements, and when you leave on a PTSD medical retirement, it's silence. They don't do, you don't get the handshake. You don't even get that. You know, you are completely shunned essentially from the
Yeah.
department, or at least that's how Dave's department handled it.
Yeah, I got a call from one of my supervisors probably a week or two after I left, and this one said, "Hey, I can't talk to you anymore." And later,
literally,
later I found out through another higher up supervisor that he said, you know, hey, I'm sorry, but they told us we couldn't speak to you.
that was a directive.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
As far as I know,
Yeah.
as
I mean,
far as I know,
of course,
you know, because you're going through the work comp stuff and everything like that. And, you know, it's like, honestly, at that point in time, I didn't care because I was so, ashamed of walking away. I was just completely guilty. I felt guilty walking away. I felt like I left my post. You know, I felt like I gave up because it got to be too much and led me to wanting to unalive myself.
Mhm.
You know, when it left to me putting that plan in motion. You know, so I knew then I'm like, I have to be done with this. I can't be out there carrying a gun and, you know, trying to help others when I can't even, you know, when I want to, you know, take my own life. But it's weird because like for 2 years, I didn't care if I died. You know, if I died at work, it was, hey, good deal.
I've heard similar stories from people where you know the comments are, well, if I die at work, at least my wife gets a bunch of money,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'll take care of her. You know,
Yep.
I've literally I've had conversations like that. And I'm
Mhm.
just it to
And-
hear that just kind of shocks you.
Yeah. And then you have the culture shift of law enforcement and Dave coming home from work one day and saying, I will never shoot my gun. I will not shoot my gun at work. I will take the bullet before I put you through any of that. I'm like, okay,
Mm,
something that needs to change here.
yeah.
Yeah, it got to that point, and you know, when you're doing more damage, and it's like I don't want to get somebody hurt, or I didn't care about myself. I just didn't want to, you know, one of my partners or a citizen get hurt because of my inability to do my job.
Were you at that time, you know, and I'm obviously knowing what I know, you know, I know there's a lot of events and incidents that preclude or you know that have occurred before you're at this dark spot in your life. But when you were making the decision to leave, to be done, was that plan to die at your own hands? Was that also in motion? I mean, were you planning on being, hey, I'm done on Friday and I'm dying on Monday? I mean, was it that deep?
No, it was one of those things where Christy and I were just living together. We were roommates, and you know, one day she was leaving for work, and she said, you know what? She goes, you need to get your shit straight, and she walked out the door, and I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to, you know? So I'm like, so I came up with my plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was set to do it, and she had left on I don't remember what night it was, but I put it into motion, and I think God was looking out for me that day, and I think he reached down and said, no, not tonight, you know, because there's no reason I should be, if everything would have went the way I wanted it to, I would not be sitting here now, but just something, the law of motion or whatever you want to say, it just, it was, I believe God reached down and said, you know what, I got different plans for you.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say it. I mean, where my faith is God had other plans.
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And but I mean, you know, how long were you a police officer before you felt, Christy's seen signs, but before you felt things were like not quote unquote normal for you? Like when you're making the decision, say like, I'm going to take a bullet instead of sending a bullet. All right. I mean, as a cop, I'm like, whoa, that's not good. I mean, when did you arrive at that point?
I'd taken some, I had about a week-long mental health stay at a hospital, and was there for a whole week. And about 2 days after I got out, I was discharged. They just said follow up. It was pretty easy. So I thought, I got through this. We'll be fine. I'll be fine. And Monday I went back to work, no questions asked. This was on a Friday that I got released. No questions asked on Monday when I returned.
No questions from
my administration,
your employer.
And they knew where I was. I told them where I went. They knew I was on a mental health for a week. They knew I was.
Was there any like fit for duty check?
No, there was nothing.
Like literally, you showed up Monday for your shift, and that was it.
And just to let your listeners, I was fine with that because I didn't have to answer questions.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to get back to work.
See, I'm looking at it from like the admin side, going, "What the hell kind of liability are we taking?" I honestly,
yeah. No, I agree. And at that time, I was just like, I just need to get back to work. I can't lose my job over this.
Oh, I get it.
I mean, and it was one of those things where I'm going to say like with Christy, she gave me options. I call them ultimatums. She calls them options. Okay. And
we all know what that means in marriage.
Yeah. So that's what got me to my first mental health stay. And then, like I was saying, then I went back on Monday, no questions asked. And on Tuesday, I had one of the worst calls I've ever had in my career.
And before you go into that call, to kind of back up, we also know, and Dave's the first to admit, that he downplayed everything during his hospitalization.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm fine. I'm going to go through the motions. I know what to say. I know what not to say. And that's exactly what happened. This was during COVID. So I was never allowed, no visitors. The hospitals are shut down. And so I was never allowed to be there. Not a single nurse, not a single doctor called me through that entire stay. And any of us who have dealt with mental health patients, whether it's in the hospital, on the streets, they might not necessarily lie to you, but they might withhold a lot of very key information that would help through your course and your treatments.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened during this. And in Dave's mind, and he's equally as responsible, not asking for FMLA. I took a step back and was like, I need to let him get through this and handle it on his own. And, in his mind, FMLA was never brought up. He didn't ask for FMLA, and that was a win for him because that whole stigma with law enforcement, if they knew where he was, but if they're not going to question it, that's a win for him.
Right. No, I understand. So I'm just curious, Dave, I mean, from your perspective, if you, and I'm not trying to hyper focus on this, but this is kind of important for my brain here. So did you go into the mental health state, the treatment for the week? Did you do that because Christy gave you that option? Or did you recognize that there was something going on?
Oh, absolutely not. It was the ultimatum that she gave me. It was either you do this or you need to move out.
Okay. No, I understand that. I mean, and sometimes that's what you have to do, as a spouse.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Dave wanting
no
help.
None of this was
Christy's
Dave wanting help.
Okay. Yep. And I see the smirk on your mouth right now
because I've learned a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay. And that's kind of where I was wondering, like, okay, why is he going into treatment? Well, okay, because you were going to be sleeping in your car.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I suspected, I think about 3 or 4 times throughout our relationship that Dave was suicidal. I suspected it. I saw the red flags. I saw the signs. I saw the personality changes. And we would have very open, frank conversations. I would flat out ask, have you ever thought about it? And he would adamantly deny it every time I'd ask. I swear I will never put you through that. I would never do that. I would tell you beforehand so, I could get help if I ever get there. I didn't believe him.
Right.
I didn't believe him for a second. I didn't believe him to the extent that I took the guns that we have in our home and I hid them. Because if, in my mind, that's what he was going to do, and I'm not going to make it easy for him.
Right. Right. No, I understand.
But yeah.
Okay. So you come back on Monday. Don't ask, don't tell policies in full effect here with your admin.
Yep.
And are you still suicidal at this point?
No, I wasn't suicidal at this point. I was still in the, I don't care if I die phase, but I wasn't where I was going to do it myself. But I was like, if it happened, I became very complacent. I've got some stories about that where I just became very complacent and I was always like, officer safety. And then that just went to the side,
What I mean, not that I want to get into a whole bunch of stories, but like what kind of examples for those who are listening? Like what are you doing? I mean, are you leaving your gun in the trunk? I mean, what's happening?
No, I was, we had a call one day of a guy that got out of the emergency department in the town I worked in, and he was on a mental health hold, and we went to the park and found him. He was about 6 blocks to 12 blocks, or he was about 6 blocks from the hospital, and he wouldn't get in the car, and I was just like, we could have sat there and talked maybe for a little bit, but I'm just like, you're getting in this car. And then he's like, no, we're not. And I just went and shoved him in. I smacked my head on the door. I was bleeding everywhere. And I jumped in. I was punching him in the stomach to try and get him to comply. And he just wasn't. And finally we got him, I think, cuffed up in the back of the car. But, I just was like doing just stuff I shouldn't be doing, and just putting my, myself out there and, in situations, and that I could have used different tactics, but I just went right at it.
Do you think your partners were noticing this? I mean, did anybody ever challenge you, go, hey, Dave, come on, you used to worry about safety. Now all of a sudden you're acting like an idiot. I mean, did anybody ever call you out on that?
Not really, and the other thing too was that I wasn't able to sleep a lot because I was having nightmares so bad. And I would literally doze off in briefing in the morning. And then one day I dozed off, and they went to play that joke where they were everybody was going to leave the room and leave me. And I woke up halfway through, and later that day, one of the guys says, dude, what's this is like the 3rd or 4th time you've fallen asleep in briefing. What? I go, I just am not sleeping. I just can't sleep. I'm just having, I didn't say, I'm having nightmares, because then that just opens another can of worms
that you don't want to go down.
That I don't want to go down.
Yeah, no.
And and it like I would drink, on my days off, I would drink to get to sleep. But then on my days that I worked, I didn't want to drink because I didn't want to be hungover. I didn't want to have alcohol in my system, because that's a whole nother beast that you don't want to do. And, but then I would suffer. I wouldn't sleep. I'd maybe catch an hour or 2 a night, if that. And so it was really starting to weigh on me. And, the call that just wrecked me, man. Yeah. That just was one that was just, it was downhill from there.
Are you in a spot that you can maybe high level that type of a call? Like explain it, or?
Yeah, for sure. And, I might get a little bit emotional because it's still, it's been a few years, but
no, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. So no, it was a Tuesday morning. It was the Monday after I was on my 2nd day back, and was in the report room and got a call of an unknown problem. And dispatch had thought that they could hear a lady saying, I'm being stabbed, but they weren't for sure. So we really didn't know what was going on, but we had a general area of where it was. So we went there, and as we pull up, this lady, who we learned later was the mom of the house, and she's out in the front yard. She's covered in blood. She's pointing at the house. My kids, and she's on the front yard, obviously been stabbed several times. So what we did is we set up a perimeter quick. We thought we had the suspect in the house still. We were pretty sure we did. So we set the perimeter up quick, and then more and more officers got there. One of our officers was also a medic at the time, so he took care of her out in the front, and then the other ones, we went and set up the perimeter, and then shortly thereafter, we made entry into the house. And I was still on the perimeter on the initial entry, and as soon as they got in, they called out a victim in the front room and asked for more officers. So at that time, my lieutenant took up my position on the perimeter. I went into the house and it was a 15-year-old boy who had been stabbed several times by his stepfather.
Mm.
And then we knew we had more kids in the house, but we didn't know where they were. We didn't know. He was the only kid we had found up until the point as far as we got into the house. We knew the house wasn't secured. I went and assessed him quick, and I'm like, he needs to get out of here now. We can't wait to clear this house. We need to get him out of here now. And so we made a human shield of the area that wasn't secured, and we brought him out. We brought in EMS, which typically doesn't come in a non-secure scene, but they did. And we got him on a soft stretcher, got him out the door. As soon as we got him on the bottom of the stairs, we started CPR and got him to the hospital, and then he was flown to another hospital after that and passed away.
Wow. I am not going to suggest what you were thinking because that's not my spot, but I'm thinking what I would be thinking. If you have one victim, as soon as you get in and you've got a bunch of unknowns, in my mind, I'm sorry, those other victims are stabbed as well.
Right.
And
right.
That's mental gymnastics right there.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. It kind of turned into almost opposite of how you deal with an active shooter. Because we couldn't hear any more scuffles. The house was quiet. It was very, very quiet in there. Other than us in there, the radio traffic on our portables, the house was quiet. But it was just him on the couch. And that's who we dealt with. And then we started, after we got him out, then we started doing our slow search because we figured he was somewhere. And we found him upstairs. And we ended up getting him into custody. And then there was a 12-year-old girl. Yeah, so there was the 12-year-old girl, and that was one of the kids. Obviously, it was the victim's sister. She had huddled all the kids. I mean, there was all age ranges down to toddlers, and she had huddled them all and hid them in a closet while kind of everything unfolded. And she was.
So this 12-year-old had the mindset to protect her siblings.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's a story in itself, I think.
Yeah, that's something else, man. But so that call just rocked my world. It was, and it's like, I look at it, it's like I'm in my 23rd year of law enforcement at this point, and I'd seen a lot. I'd dealt with a lot. And but this one, it was just it just scraped off the scabs of everything that I'd buried. And I was starting to have nightmares of stuff that happened 10 years before that I kind of buried, and it just all started coming back after this call. And that was really the next 8 months to follow was a roller coaster for Christi and my family.
Is that where you, Christi, noticed, like, I mean, did you notice I'll call it the downfall for lack of a better description. Is that was that incident monumental for you too when you're looking at Dave?
Yeah, he called me. I don't even think he'd cleared the scene quite yet, and he called me. I was out off work that day, and he called me at home, and he was crying so hard. I couldn't hardly even understand what was going on. I assumed he hadn't been involved in a shooting because he had always made it very clear that I wouldn't hear from him for quite a while if that was ever the case, due to all the investigations and stuff. But he was finally able just to get out enough. Well, he didn't even tell me anything that happened other than, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this. And, he's 2 days out of an inpatient mental health stay. We should be, in my mind, getting better. So after that day, he started every week, religiously, every week would go to an outpatient therapist appointment. And, it was like Dave described it as a rubber band. you know, you have your days off, things are good, and now you're getting closer to going back to the street and working, and it's like that rubber band just snaps. And how long until that breaks? Um, I think he started drinking a little more during that time frame, if I remember right. And they all kind of blur together after a while. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, because for you guys, this is life. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like an incident, It's one big
Right.
incident.
and it is. And we weren't trying to hide anything. We were very open with his department when he had his inpatient stay on where he was going and why he was going there. So we weren't trying to hide anything, but we also weren't openly sharing anything that was going on in our private life like we are now, which in itself is exhausting. To put on that happy face and you look on our social media and it's like, oh, these guys have a happy marriage. We're smiling, standing beside each other in pictures when the reality is we were hardly speaking. We were coexisting in our home.
We were roommates.
Yeah, Dave was basically living in the basement. I was living upstairs, and we would talk when we needed to for the kids' sake. And that was it. And we continued doing that for about 8 months while Dave was still going to therapy. And things weren't getting any better.
I want to focus on something for just a second because this is a part that I don't think a lot of people understand. And I think you guys could really speak well to this. When first responders go to work, we're responsible for all these things, right? I mean, taking care of this, taking, all these calls for service, whether it's a cop or an ER nurse or a firefighter. I mean, it's all these. But they forget that we have personal lives that we have to basically put on pause or try to put on pause. I mean, I know there were certainly, times in my own marriage, that my wife and I were coexisting. And when you go to work, you're expected to shut that off, and that's just not possible. But if you don't, or if you don't try, especially for law enforcement, and I'll even say in, the other first responder groups too, you make mistakes because you've got your mind is not completely there.
Yeah.
So, that is definitely affecting you at work. I mean, we're the cause, and I'm not necessarily wanting to go down this huge road with you guys, but were a lot of your marital problems as a result of Dave's work?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm seeing all the signs and everything that's going on. And in our minds, we thought going to therapy was the fix. We've done an inpatient stay, or Dave's done an inpatient stay. Now he's doing therapy. What's left to make things better? I suspected, and I think this was the first time throughout our marriage that you were truly suicidal. I had suspected it, and the drinking had gotten so bad. Dave's drinking had gotten so bad that he left for work at 6 o'clock in the evening, thinking it was 6 o'clock in the morning. And he was heading in for his shift. Like his days and nights were all mixed up because it was drink until you're blackout drunk.
Oh my gosh.
And I was
bad.
scared for Dave's safety. I was scared for his partner's safety. And I finally said to him when he left for shift one day, I said, you need to tell them what's going on. I was never, and Dave's department at that time, there were no resources. There was nothing. There was no chaplain, no social workers, there was nothing. And I finally just said to him, you need to tell them what's going on at work, because if you don't, I'm going to tell them, and I could give two shits less if you lose your job or not. It's not worth it. This is your job.
And is your motivation at this point like to save your marriage? I mean, because are you even out?
I wouldn't even say it was to save our marriage. It was to save Dave's life.
Wow.
Because I fully suspected that he was suicidal. And
yeah, and it's like the thing that I like to point out or want to point out is that, Christy and I are remarried. I mean, we don't have any kids together. She has, I mean, it's not like she was staying for the kids. If anything, I mean, we talk about in our book is that she would go and do stuff with the kids because we did week on, week off with our exes. Mm-hmm. So the week on that we had the kids, she would not work those weeks because she didn't want the kids to be alone with me because she was worried that I would unalive myself and they would find me.
Dude, you were in a hole.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I
it
mean,
was.
I'm starting to like pull it together here, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, it's
kind of surprised I'm looking at you right now.
yeah, it was that was the one thing is like she didn't have to stay. I mean, she could have she had every reason to just be like, I'm done with you. The person I married is not you, and I'm out of here. But by the grace of God, she stayed, and 100% her and my family are the only reason I'm still here today. It has my brothers and sisters in blue, they didn't prevent that.
Yeah.
The family.
That hurts.
It does.
But it's true.
It is. It's not. It's people want to say, we're a family and of law enforcement, but that's a whole nother episode probably.
Well, I've talked about it. Trust me.
But
I've had some episodes on that.
Yeah,
already.
that's one thing that if something like this happens, or if you have to leave, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
You're out. You're done.
So, Christi, the obvious question: why did you stay? You had no kids. I didn't realize you didn't have any kids in common because I've heard you reference kids, but I made some assumptions which were wrong. Why did you stay?
So I had two very strong reasons on why I stayed. And I have spouses that sometimes call me and be like, hey, I have this going on. When do I draw the line? When is enough enough? To not be the punching bag of the relationship, essentially, because that's what you become a lot. You take the brunt of it. You take the anger and, everything that comes with it. And don't get me wrong, Dave was never like physical or anything like that to me, but just his own anger inside of himself. And I would say it's not my place to tell you that. I am never going to tell somebody unless they're being beaten and abused that you need to walk away. Nobody can make that decision but yourself. But for me personally, I grew up with an uncle who had terrible depression. And when he was no longer able to take care of himself and fight for himself, I watched my mom and her siblings step in. And that was back when the state hospitals were a big thing and get the state commitment to get him the help that he needed. And he got the help that he needed. And I was told Dave met him a couple of times before he ended up ultimately getting killed in a workplace explosion. And I always told Dave, like, I wish you could have met him back then to the guy that you met, because you would never believe that that was the same person. But had my mom and, my aunts and uncles, my uncle not fought for him, what would have happened? That story could have been completely different. Yeah. And that was kind of a lot of our story. Dave during that time frame had kind of isolated himself from all of his family. So if I don't stay in this and fight for him, who's going to stay in it and fight? But at the same time, how is it fair that I'm staying in our relationship solely to keep my husband alive? Because I know what's going to happen if I walk away. And there's a lot of spouses that are staying in there for that reason. But like Dave said, when he did the inpatient stay, he didn't do that for himself. He did that for me, because that's what I wanted. And it took another, almost a year and a half of Dave continuing to spiral after that inpatient stay.
It was a huge roller coaster. It was up and down through that year and a half.
It had to click on Dave's terms and on Dave's time that, okay, I need to put the work in here. Because I had a good friend of mine say to me once, she's like, Christi, why are you putting more work into healing Dave and making him better than he's putting in for himself?
Fair question.
Very fair question. 100% accurate. And until Dave reached that point, and when I wouldn't even say he was at that point when, as Dave calls it, an ultimatum, I call it an option of going to a facility out in Utah when Dave was at rock bottom. And I gave him that option. And it was that day when I realized there was a missing piece on this puzzle, on trying to find what was going to work. And I always felt like I could do more. There's more I can do yet, and I haven't found the missing puzzle piece. And when we put Dave on an airplane to go out to Utah for inpatient mental health treatment, it was at that moment I felt all of the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. Even though I still personally had so much going on in my life, I felt free as could be. I had no idea when he came home if we were going to continue our relationship, if we would go our separate way. I didn't know what was going to happen. But I finally knew and had that peace and comfort that I've done everything I can.
Mm.
And now it's in Dave's hands on what he chooses to do with it.
So Dave's going to do what Dave's going to do.
Right.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
what was that place called?
Chateau Health and Wellness. It's in, they just moved. They just got a new facility. It's in Oakley, California, or Oakley, Utah.
Utah.
Oh, sorry, California.
Somewhere in Utah.
Yeah, it's in Oakley, Utah, up in the Wasatch, near the Wasatch Mountains, which is around Salt Lake City. Like Robert Redford has a ski lodge up in that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty bougie.
So anybody who's listening, I'll put a link on our website.
Yeah.
And
it's a great place, and it specializes. It specializes in first responders and veterans. That's what they specialize in, and it's amazing. They had a family program that Christi could go through alongside me while she was at home. And then we have all kinds of stuff after we get home. Like we have a weekly alumni Zoom meeting with everybody that wants to jump on. So there's continued support after it. That's what I really like about it.
Still?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
free.
And it's free.
Wow.
Yeah. It wasn't free to go there.
Oh,
but
I was going to say, who sponsored that trip?
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
it was not free to go there, but
Well, so I just want to make sure for any listeners that think that this might be a resource, I don't know the website. So our website is weareunderinvestigation.com. Look under the resources tab. I'll definitely get that link from you at some point, and
Yep.
I'll get that.
Yeah.
on there.
And the super cool thing, I've always, as Dave calls it, been into the hippie shit. That's what Dave calls it.
The what?
the hippie
The
shit.
hippie shit.
Like the non-conventional mental health treatment.
yoga and sound baths and oils and
Hey, I know a guy who went to Mexico.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Believe me, I've researched it. And so I've always been in, and Dave would always make fun of me about, he thinks I have oil to cure everything. But the super nice thing is being a nurse, I'm not one to just like push meds. Like take care of it. Like
That's good to hear, because the reputation is the opposite.
yeah. And, treat the underlying cause, like find out what's going on. The meds are just going to mask it if you don't actually take care of what's going on inside. And so that was the thing I really learned to love about Chateau Health and Wellness. It's a combination of, as Dave calls it, the hippie shit, along with modern medicine, taking your meds and figuring out what meds work for you and what's best for you, but also holistic other treatments. And at this point, when Dave left, he had been out of law enforcement, I think, for about 9 months before.
No, it was over. It was about almost a year and a half.
Yeah, before he officially hit his rock bottom. And I totally forgot where I was going with that. But when he left law enforcement at that time, we thought we had done everything we could. He's done an inpatient mental health stay for 8 months now. He's done weekly traditional talk therapy. We thought that's all that there was out there. So what's left to save Dave's life other than to walk away from law enforcement? Take that out of the equation, and that's going to fix all of our problems. When the reality was, that just snowballed them even more, because now he's lost that identity. Being a cop was who he was through and through. Was his passion and his love, and now we've taken that away. And neither one of us took into account what that effect was going to have on him at all.
That identity piece.
But we thought, what else is left? Even me as a nurse, I had no idea there was so much more else out there that we didn't know about, that we hadn't tried, that could have even potentially changed the trajectory of Dave leaving, where he could have made it to his 30 years or his 35 years and walk away under a normal retirement. But we didn't know. We thought this is our last option. Walk away, and that's going to fix everything, when the reality was that was the icing on the cake for Dave to hit his bottom.
That and another thing would kind of push me to my rock bottom, it was, and we kind of talked about it earlier. It's like, when did you realize that you needed help? It wasn't until I was at Chateau for a week that I realized I needed help.
So just for personal reference, so when you and I met,
Mm-hmm. that's when I just left law enforcement, like literally that week. The week before I
yeah.
went
I was
to,
gonna say, I remember like you were like fresh out, and you were kind of like shell shock. It would be a way. I mean, I remember at night when I was not that that's not a point to the story, but I was praying for all the guys that were there. I mean, that was specifically what I really even to this day recall was just praying for you because I just didn't think you were there, like
Mhm.
there,
oh
mentally.
no, I wasn't. Because, and to kind of go back on that, I did not want to go on that retreat.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't.
Why did you go?
Because Christy's like, you need
Because
to
I
go.
gave him an option
option.
again.
Oh, I love this option thing.
Yeah, no, because when I went with a coworker, who's awesome. I mean, and I think he's been back there a couple times. Him and his spouse, I think, went back. But he went. He and I did enjoy it. I mean, those guys out there are amazing. That's a great place. I mean, it is. But I wasn't in a right mindset to appreciate it.
Okay. And
I was in fight or flight when I was there. I was like, because I'm like, do I go back to law enforcement? Am I leaving? I mean, I was kind of in limbo there, and I had gotten a letter from work that kind of helped seal the deal. They were wanting all these mental health tests and everything, and I'm like, I know exactly what they're trying to do, So I kind of went and protected myself and set up things I needed to get that in motion. And that was a bad time because I did not want to leave.
Yeah.
I did not want to leave.
so Protector's Peak, my observation from when we were out there is you just, like I said, you seemed a little edgy, and now it kind of makes sense. I mean, now hearing all the stuff that I'm hearing right now, I'm like, oh, that light bulb just got really bright for me. I'm like, okay, this totally makes sense now.
Right. Yeah.
So you literally were just brand new. You're still
Yep.
bleeding under the Band-Aid kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, it was yeah. No, it was literally, and I remember the head guy of it. We were sitting.
Nate?
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know
No,
if
no,
I
that's
could. I
fine.
didn't know if I could say
Yeah,
his name.
we're gonna drag Nate
Yeah,
on
but
the
Nate,
show
one
eventually.
morning I was just sitting on the couch and kind of everybody was still sleeping or kind of getting up, and he comes up and we're just talking, and I kind of broke down a little bit, and kind of the same thing. My doctor, when I filed for FMLA, he looks at me and says, "Dave, when's enough enough?"
Mm.
And I'm like, yeah, you know. It's true, but I didn't see it. Through this whole thing, I kind of held on to hope that I would get some help and be able to go back, but that just never came.
Mhm.
It just never came.
Wow. Okay. So now that puts it in perspective for me, as far as when I saw you and
Yep.
met you.
Yeah.
So now the chateau, we're talking a year-ish later.
Yep.
You're
Yeah.
at the chateau, and this is a 30-day inpatient.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
funny, I kind of left that bit of information out when I was telling Dave about Chateau.
Oh, was he going on a vacation or
I
what?
thought he was going on a weekend retreat.
I thought it was another retreat. And so I said, yeah,
No.
I'm like, yeah, I'll go. She's like,
She's mean.
yeah. And here's the ultimatum. I'm going to tell this because then we usually tell it, but she said to me, she goes, hey, I have this opportunity for you. If you decide not to do this, take this opportunity, I asked for 3 hours because I'm going to get everything I want out of the house in 3 hours, and you can have the house.
Dang.
That was the deal. But to back up about a month and a half prior to that was middle of April when Gary Schroeder Jr. took his own life. Dave and Gary, along with Gary's sister Beth, had went to college together. And through the course of our marriage, we reconnected with Gary and Kim.
At a Protector's Peak conference that we went to.
And
Okay.
Dave and I started going to different conferences together, like trying to find there's got to be something out there for us, like somebody we could connect with. You feel so alone when you're going through this.
Mhm.
I hate the cliche of you are not alone, because when you're in those dark phases, it doesn't matter. You feel alone,
Mm.
that nobody gets it and understands. And so we started going to these different conferences and we reconnected with Gary and Kim. So now we're in mid-April and Gary's taken his own life. Dave was at work that day working with one of his old undercover partners, and I called him at work that day and told him about it.
About Gary.
about Gary. And I'll never forget Dave walking into the house that night. And I met him at the entryway of the house, and we just stood there and we both cried. And, there's not a lot of words you can say during something like that. But I'll just never forget Dave looks right at me and he says, I thought Gary was doing okay. I think I'm doing okay, but what if I'm not? And
Wow.
it completely rocked Dave's world. That was the first law enforcement funeral that Dave ever attended, not being in uniform, just going as a civilian like every other one of us.
Identity.
Yep.
And
That's the first thing I thought of when
Yeah.
you said that. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I get it.
yeah,
I was
And-
at that funeral too.
yeah. And it completely rocked Dave's world. And over the course of the next month, Dave spiraled like I'd never seen him spiral. I didn't think things could get any worse. And little did I know they were going to get a lot worse. But the scariest part about it, for the first time, they got worse without alcohol. Dave was doing it sober. He wasn't using the alcohol to hide everything that was going on or to try to take some of those feelings away. And so things just really progressed over that next month. And at that time, I was mainly working at home. And I had picked a shift up back in the ER, and I got to work that day. And everything in the pit of my stomach, as cops and nurses, you get those feelings,
And you learn to trust them.
You learn to trust them. You can't explain it, but like for us with our patients, like, when things are going south. You guys have that as cops. And I had that feeling that Dave was suicidal. He's going to do it. We again had conversations about it, and he adamantly denied it.
Let's stop there for just a second. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this because this is important. But we're gonna make this 2 episodes. But before we sign off for the day, Dave, just kind of plug your book. This is a free plug right now. Tell us about your book. How can they get a hold of it?
Sure.
And then, of course, we're going to hope that everybody comes back for the second part because it's going to get, I think, chilly here pretty quick.
Yeah, there's more to come, definitely. But the book is Beneath the Badge, A Couple's Fight for Hope Through PTSD. You can get it on Amazon right now, and you can get it on Barnes & Noble online. You can get it pretty much any place that book sales, but it's our story. It's raw. Anybody that's ever worn the uniform, a spouse of somebody that's worn the uniform, or love somebody that's worn the uniform, this story is for you. And it's not a long, you can read it. I think people have told us they've read it in about 2.5 hours. It's like 150 pages. But it's a story. It's like no longer than a Dateline episode if you wanted to sit down and read it. But ultimately it tells our story and the struggles we had and how we are still going to this day.
And if people want to connect with you, do you guys have a website as well?
Yeah. It's beneaththebadge.com. And then we also have a Facebook page, which is Beneath the Badge, the Dave and Christi Dyke story on Facebook.
All right, perfect. Well, we're going to wrap it up there, but please, everybody, stick around. The next episode's coming up in just a few, whenever you guess, I guess when you listen to it.